The two most common loop layouts are perimeter and phased array. A perimeter loop would be used in a venue where there's probably no other loop system around, as the perimeter loop has a very large overspill pattern. So if you had another loop system in close vicinity to the perimeter loop, there would be effectively crosstalk. To combat this, we sometimes use a phased array. A phased array has a much smaller overspill pattern and can be used nearer other loop systems. A phased array would also be used in a much larger venue where a perimeter loop would not perform correctly. Our design software gives you the option to choose a layout that best suits your environment. This may be a phased array, a perimeter loop, a phased array with cancellation loops, or even a figure-of-8 loop. Our loop design software also outputs sketches and diagrams for the installer, detailing dimensions, equipment needed, placement and locations of the loop cables. Once a survey has been completed and it's been decided that an installation of a loop system can go ahead, we then need to choose the correct cable for the installation. There are various cables available. There's flat copper tape, there's round wire, and there's also direct burial cable, which is also a round wire, but it has a special coating to protect it against the alkalines in concrete, etc. There's different widths of flat copper tape and there's different diameters of round wire. The reason for this is that if a very, very long loop is required, we may need to use a very wide flat copper tape. If it's a short loop, you may only need to use a thinner cable or a narrower flat copper tape. To terminate the loop system, once you've run it round the room, we would use a feeder cable to go back to the loop driver. This is a typical feeder cable. It is a twisted pair and it will be soldered to the ends of the loop cables and then a connector put on the other end to connect to the loop driver. Typically, flat copper tape will be used when installing the loop underneath a carpet or carpet tiles. Round wire would be used on a skirting board, for instance, or above a false ceiling. I'm now going to show a typical method of installing a flat copper tape onto a floor. First of all, we're going to start with a double-sided carpet tape. So I just apply it to the floor and drag it along the floor, just tapping it down as I go. And I take this to my marker on the floor. So the next step is to remove the backing of the double-sided carpet tape in preparation for applying the copper flat tape. Next, we lay the flat copper tape on the double-sided carpet tape, pressing it down as we go. It's a good idea to have a roller to roll this down, but for this example, I will just be using my fingers. And lastly, we will apply the gaffer tape over the copper foil and carpet tape. It's a good idea to use red and blue so that you can tell which loop is your primary loop and which loop is your secondary loop. If the floor is accessible for future work, it's advisable to have a do not cut tape applied instead of the gaffer tape or on top of the gaffer tape to warn people not to cut the tape. When you reach a corner, fold the tape over and fold it flat and then continue down the straight, pressing the tape down firmly, making sure the corner is nice and flat. Then add your covering tape to finish off.